My name is Canét-Gibson. I'm a photographer working in Perth. Most days I just wander around and meet people and shoot landscapes and still lives or whatever I find. I start the day, usually I meditate in the morning, and then I will jump in the car and wander off into the city, and I have a camera, one lens, two shoes, and I hit the sidewalk, and pretty much the city is the casting agency and the sidewalk is my studio where I shoot, and I just meet people and away we go. When I was 5, I remember going to a doctor's surgery. My brother was sick and I was lying on the cold floor, and I looked through an illustrated book of the Bible, and there was all the head positions, all the sepia tones, and the way it was drawn is pretty much what I'm replicating in all my work. The whole world around me disappeared. When I get a photograph that works that way, in my head I match it up to that, and when it works, that's when I stop. It's like a stream. It can go somewhere. It can be a straight portrait with no textures. It can be something that's made to look from 1850. It can be anything in between. It can be inversed. It can be split up. It can be anything. I just sit there and basically wait for the image to tell me what to do. I choose my people when I walk around. I just sense someone that looks good that will transfer into the way I see the world. So mainly I find that most people are creative people that I choose on the street, and they're mainly artists of photography, art, music, dancers. People that say, how do you walk up to strangers and say, can I take your photo? Well, I walk up to strangers and say, my name's Brett, I'm a photographer, and I'd like to take your portrait. The trick that I've worked out early on is to carry a folio, and I carry a small folio with me, and I show the people the work. And once they see the work, they think, yeah, he's okay, and then it goes from there. A lot of my work is very simple. Black backdrop. I do carry a black shirt or get people to wear black, or I pick someone wearing black, and it's just purely on the face and the eyes. So it has to have some sort of depth. It's got to be behind, it's got to be in the head. And I also take away jewellery, necklaces, anything like that, so it doesn't date the image. So you don't know whether it was done yesterday or 10 years ago. And I like that timelessness, so people can then get across the divide of that's shot in the 80s, that's whatever. So what draws me towards portraiture is a connection with people. And I'm quite funny. I don't know how to say this, but I don't really like people. I could easily be a hermit living on a hill, venturing out and making my art and going back and doing that. But for me, it's that connection, and I feel so happy when I get a photo or take a portrait of someone that I get that connection with, and I look at it. And there's certain images that I've taken that I still go back to that to draw something from. From the very get-go, I was always a portrait photographer. I knew that straight away. I don't know what I'm trying to find. I suppose I just like little pictures. I like things that are small, and I just like being drawn into that world. And I think it goes back to that book on the floor. I think I keep going back to wanting to have that sensation of dissolving. What leads me to making images is my dad used to make amateur films, Super 8. So we'd run around and make little films, and it was all great, and we'd edit them and cut it and splice it and stick it together. It was just wonderful. Moving forward, I was the sport kid at school, so I never really got to explore art and photography. And then a guitar popped up in our house, and I picked it up one day and thought, I'm going to play that thing. And then that became my life until 25. In the band, when we toured around Australia, I always did the posters and the shirts and all that sort of stuff. But I made a pact to myself, by the time I'm 25, if I don't have a decent record deal, I'm out of this. I'm going back to study, and I want to be a photographer. So I applied at the Central Metropolitan College of Art and Design. And I remember going there, had a few sunsets and a few whatever photos. And the head lecturer looked at the work and said, "Brett, there's better photographers applying for this, but you're 25, you must really want to do it." And yeah, I went from there. And from the very first day, I found myself in the studio, and I pretty much for 2.5, 3 years shot portraits every day. And one of the very first portraits that made me think this is a way to go was of a dancer. She was there at the college that I come third in a portrait competition in National Mag in my first year. And I remember going, that's cool, I want to do this. And that sort of kept me on the path. Interestingly, black background, black clothes. The work really hasn't changed that much. It's just refined. And I think what I've refined is me dealing with the people. That's the bit that you can't teach anyone. You just have to go out there and do it. Meander, Triste and Awe, the book project, which is a diary of my Perth, has taken up pretty much 2.5 years. And I work in two ways. I go out and capture, and then I start putting images together and design it on a page. A lot of time shooting, a lot of time thinking about the images, and a lot of time actually marrying the images together, whether it's a still life of a flower with a face, or it's a feather that I find on the street and I photograph that and then I put it with a landscape. And then I write words also. So if nothing's happening in the day where I'm shooting a portrait and I can't find anyone, I'll go to a coffee shop and then write some poems or observations and stuff. And then I've got to put all that together. What inspires me to make art is, it can be anything. It can be like that feather. Like if you look around here, I've got feathers that I pick up. They feel like it's a story. There's a poem. There's art right there. Or a leaf. Or if you go out in the courtyard, there's all little leaves. And I couldn't make that. It's stained and it's dirty and it's sun bleached and it's got full of sun hours and moon moments. It's like there. Look at that thing. That's what inspires me to make art. Other artists, obviously. There's many photographers that have sort of led me on the way, but I've been very conscious. In music, I started off in a cover band. In photography, I didn't. And I didn't want to do that because once you start mimicking things, it's very hard to get it out of your system. It was more inspiration than imitation. So I was very conscious of that. Although you do pick up realms of bits and pieces, and I suppose good artists hide their influences, so you can't see them. Everything I seem to put into a competition gets into the final, and I'm no better photographer than the next guy. Maybe that's the aesthetic at the moment, or the political climate at the moment, and the subjects I'm choosing. I just see people on the street. So with Mistura, the beautiful Muslim mother of 3 that I photographed, people seem to think that's somehow unique, but it's not. You walk out in the street and there's wonderful people everywhere. My advice for emerging Perth artists is to go and make art. Just do it. Just get up and walk outside, or walk to your studio, or stay in bed, whatever your practice is. You can do anything you want, just keep doing it. The thing is, people give up too quick. It's not working, I've got to get a day job, I've got to get money coming in. And yes, you do, but if you filter out all those things, you've got to remain true to your art practice, and you've got to remain true to yourself. And if you take on all these other influences, your work gets watered down. People think that a landscape is this, or a portrait is this. It's only this because that's what that person that took it said it was. What do you think it is? What's a portrait? I've been banging on about this for 20 years, and finally people are starting to look at my work and go, wow, that's really good. But I've been doing the same work ever since I picked up a camera. So like I said before, you just got to keep going and keep going and keep doing it. And then the other thing is, advice is, you got to work out what you define success as. For me, it's just to wander around and pick up things, and I'm going to say it again, is to make little pictures and that satisfy me. And then when I look at those little pictures, my world dissolves and I'm happy. And that's what makes my art practice. And I think everyone should do that. Find their way through the world.